What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a little while ago, I saw some information over on Twitter that I had to push off just a little bit because there was so much other information coming out with more leaks, more information about the lab sessions that are going on within Battlefield 6. I gotta be real with you guys. Although I give EA a lot of crap, they have been doing a phenomenal job with keeping the interest for Battlefield 6 at an all-time high. Seriously, there's always new information coming out. The leaks aren't getting shut down, so, a lot of people think they're, put out on purpose. Basically, the talk for this game is non-stop, and there's always something to discuss, which is really cool. But I think it's time for us to, kind of kick back a little bit and discuss a more serious topic here, because the gaming scene as a whole is becoming an absolute embarrassment. Seriously, all of these development teams out here are lacking the passion and drive of putting together a solid experience, a solid performing experience, and they're now banking on laziness and also, all these other, features that have been introduced to consoles and PCs to help with the performance. They're all banking on those in order to, kind of make their job a tad bit easier. But as you can see right here from Battlefield Bulletin, Battlefield 6 won't support ray tracing. Technical director Christian Bull says they're focusing on making the game as optimized as possible for the default settings and the default users. We just made the decision relatively early on that we just weren't going to do ray tracing, and again, it was mostly so that we could focus on making sure it was performance for everyone else. And ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't end there. Battlefield Bulletin went on to say, technical director Christian Bull says Battlefield 6 won't rely on DLSS, FSR, or XESS as substitutes for optimization, since the studio's goal is for the game to run great on its own. Though these upscaling technologies will still be offered as an option, I believe all of our default performance targets are not with upscaling on. There are pros and cons to a lot of those different technologies. Our goal is for everything to be performant without a lot of extra stuff. Guys, let me just say it again. This is exactly why Battlefield 6, to me personally, is in such a phenomenal spot. And to be real with you guys, I would not expect anything, less than what they are providing here from a game that's being run by Vincent Pella, if I'm going to be completely real. It's strange because it seems like every single game that drops nowadays has the worst performance I have ever witnessed in my whole freaking life. Every single one of them. And it's sad because it never improves. It only gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And you would think it would be the opposite, with new technology and things enhancing. You would think our gaming experience would be phenomenal. But the sad part about it is, again, there's a lot of these features that have been introduced that makes our lives better, as the consumer, but it also makes the developers' lives easier as well, because a lot of these dev teams are working around these features to, save them a little bit of time and a little bit of stress to make their jobs just that much easier, and they could pump out products at a quicker rate instead of actually, optimizing the living heck out of the game and making sure it could run without any of this stuff. And, adding it on will only be a plus. It's not required. But in a lot of these other games, it is literally a requirement. You have to go into your settings, and instead of just saying, I'll put my settings on medium or high and just leave it at that, no, you need to go into the details and make sure you have all of the details lined up and switched around and set up nicely in order for the game to run properly. And even then, you probably have to go to an extra, level to make it run good. I've seen people actually pay others to optimize the game for them and, set up their PC so they can actually run these games properly and make sure, everything is nice and clean. Let me ask you guys something. Is that normal? Should people have to really go out of their way to watch 50 different YouTube videos or hire individuals to tap into their PCs to optimize? Is all this stuff needed? It was never needed before. We never needed to, take all these extra steps to play any of the games in the past. And now, out of nowhere, every single title, it just requires too much. It requires way too much. And you want to know why? Again, I'm going to say it. Laziness. Developers don't want to put in the effort like they used to back in the day to make sure that these experiences are truly optimized by launch. They rely off of a lot of the features that are convenient. These conveniences that are good for the overall population. But it's not good when the game relies off of these conveniences, right? And Battlefield 6 is the complete utter opposite. The game ran perfectly. It was beautiful, and I never expected to see a Battlefield game run the way that Battlefield 6 did. This franchise is notorious for horrible launches and horrible betas, tons of lag, tons of issues, horrible netcode, horrible performance. All of the above. Even the GOATs, like Battlefield 4, had to take like a year to go ahead and polish it off and make sure it was actually functioning. Battlefield 6, right out the gate, in beta form, is perfection. It took me 0 time to get things working nicely. And for everybody else, it was the same exact thing. They hopped on either their console, they hopped on their PC, and everything just simply worked. And it's because of exactly what they're saying in these posts. They wanted the game to not have to be required to use these conveniences. Again, things like DLSS, FSR, XESS, all of those other, features that improve the performance of your overall game, they didn't want you to have to use that. Can you use them? Yes. And it will improve the overall experience, but it's not required. They wanted to make sure that the game, the base version of the game, works outstanding. And from there, they will only, improve everything else. But I really do hope that Battlefield 6 is a wake-up call to the whole overall gaming scene. Because, as I stated, this is like a cancer that is seeping throughout the overall community, where all of these development teams are getting lazier and lazier and lazier. And they know that, certain features can be their crutch, to help push things along where they don't have to do as much hard work. But I hope that Battlefield 6 proves that hard work pays off. And also, it will prove to the overall audience out there that there are games that don't take, 1,000 years of computer knowledge to know how to optimize your, system for it. Seriously, convenience is something that gamers crave. And I'm hoping that when people see how easy it is to run Battlefield 6, especially when it, gets to the official launch and we're not in beta, that will bring more players in. And as I stated, it will show these other massive publishers that, maybe it is a bad thing that we're forcing out these games and rushing these developers and making sure everything is half-assed. Because, before there wasn't as much competition and every development team does it, right? Every single team out there does it. Every game is hard to run. Every game is horribly optimized until, months down the road when they finally fix things up with future updates. But at launch, it's always an absolute nightmare. I'm hoping that Battlefield 6 shows to them and, people actually switch over and play Battlefield 6 heavily because of this exact reason. Because if they do, we will start seeing games and companies actually step it up a bit more because now the bar is finally raised. The bar was lowering, ladies and gentlemen, and it was lowering more and more and more as time goes on. Once people see that they can slack off in certain areas and it won't affect them, they do it more, right? They might not do it a lot in the beginning because they're worried it might affect their overall bottom line. But once they see they could do it a bit more here and a bit more there and a bit more there, it starts to become the snowball effect where it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And in this, case, they're getting lazier and lazier and lazier. And more teams see this and more teams, hold their standards to the other development. Like for example, Activision. They can pump out the same yearly COD game. Half-assed, horrible launches, game is poorly optimized, can't run for anybody, absolute disgrace. They do it yearly, they make bank yearly, and players play it yearly. It tops charts all the time, especially on console. And other development teams see that, and they're like, okay, that's where the bar is set. We're going to do the same. And what I'm saying here is that I hope that Battlefield 6 raises that bar and people see that, there are games out there that are well optimized, and companies can see that people notice. And when they are presented an alternative, they're going to take that alternative. But I really hope that this will change the overall gaming scene because this laziness when it comes to optimization is getting disgusting at this point. And the fact that this is refreshing to play a game that is actually optimized is, to me personally, embarrassing. I mean, seriously, that was a normal thing back in the day. Games didn't drop with 50,000 updates. When a game came out, that's what you purchased into. That's what you got. So either the game worked, either it ran, or it was absolute garbage, and it was buggy as hell, and, it was bad. It was one or the other. There's no in-betweens, and the games didn't get fixed up over time afterwards if they did launch in that bad of a state. We need to go back to those times. Live service has been a curse. Live service is a good idea. On paper, it's awesome. But in practice, it has been a disaster. And I'm hoping that Battlefield 6 can change the term live service, because what live service is supposed to be is it's supposed to be a game that is supported over years. That's what live service is all about. But these massive corporations have basically twisted the term live service into, okay, we drop half-assed games now, and live service means we just build it up over time, and it becomes complete a year down the road. That's not what it should be, and Battlefield 6 is hopefully going to prove this. You drop a game that is in a good spot with a good amount of content, and then you build it over time. You're not fixing it over time. You are now officially building it up over the course of years. That's what live service should be all about, and Battlefield 6, I think, is going to cement the new term of live service into a lot of gamers' heads. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hated it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. I post here daily at 8 in the morning Eastern Time. And we also double upload at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Everything between COD, Battlefield, Splitgate 2, Arca Raiders, Gears, pretty much any shooter that sparks my interest, I'll go ahead and post on this channel. And last but not least, if you guys are interested in any of my live streams, I stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, got to link that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all next one. Peace out.